Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Chris Haug. As Patrick mentioned, I am the managing director of Startup Grind Maryland. We are thrilled that you are here. And this is I believe it's the 30th or 31st Ask the Expert Founders Forum event that we have put on over the last 3 or 4 years. And we started the Founders Forum as an online way right after we went into lockdown for the pandemic, as a way of trying to keep the community together and linked. And as with most things, it started out with a slow response, but we have steadily built the number of recurring members substantially. And the whole purpose behind our Founders Forums is to provide a relaxed, safe place for founders and founding teams to come and literally kick back, take a load off, relax, and share with one another our successes, our failures, our worries, and our struggles. And with the primary objective of helping each other move forward as much as we can. For those of you who are aware or not aware of Startup Grind, we are the largest global community of investors, educators, startups, all the way through post-IPO companies, influencers, and consultants. We have about 5 million community members in 560 chapters in 140 countries around the world. And our mission is very simple, and that is we are here to educate, inspire, and connect one another with the resources that we need to go as far in our entrepreneurial journey as we can. And with that said, I would first like to thank our sponsors. First up is TEDCO, which most of you are aware is the large state public-private partnership that does a lot of financing and support work in our ecosystem. The second is 360 Venture Management Group. The third is BW Tech at UMBC, which is one of the state's premier incubator and accelerator programs located over in UMBC's Research and Technology Park. And I also want to give a special shout out to Ryan Sears and Founder Track for being one of our sponsoring organizations here. And so that being said, I think that's all I have. And so, Patrick, I will turn it back over to you.
Oh, okay. Then I'm going to introduce Ryan Sears. You can find him in one of those boxes somewhere. And you know, that's the problem I've had all these years. I'm an older guy, and for decades I kept trying to think outside of the box. But now that we've gone on to these systems, I'm trying to think inside this box, and it's just got me all turned around. However, Ryan Sears, our guest host, he's the guy. When it comes to accelerators, he's the guy. I met him years ago, and when he was launching his, I don't know, second, third, whatever attempt, you'll have to tell us about it, Ryan, into another venture with a new technology. It went well. He just soared right up through the ecosystem here, presenting and getting the interest. And then he went to home community of Annapolis and created Launch Annapolis. If anybody has never heard of Launch Annapolis, look it up after this. It's a great organization. He went on from there to get this Founder Track thing together that we mentioned. And if you haven't looked at that, look at it. Founder Track. It's a Maryland-based, but already proven across the nation as a business growth, business creation assistance platform. And Ryan, you'll get me on a soapbox if you let me go any further. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. Ryan, you got the ball.
Thank you so much, Patrick and Chris and Jeffrey. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate the warm introduction there, Patrick. We go way back, and it's been fun doing all kinds of different stuff with you over the years. We've hosted events together. We've done a ton of stuff in the startup ecosystem, and it's been a lot of fun. And I'm grateful to be back here. So I just put my LinkedIn in the chat. So if there's anyone here that hasn't connected with me, I'd like to connect with you. And by way of format, Patrick, what would you have me do next here?
If you just give us a bit of an overview on your definition of an accelerator. Founder Track, as I mentioned, is a business growth, business creation platform, assistant platform, and we're using it for running the accelerator that we have coming up. We've used it at the beginning of this year for an accelerator, and I've picked up that it's being used across the country. So accelerator is becoming better and better defined, and Founder Track is in the forefront of defining what an accelerator really is and what it can do.
Yeah, and I think I probably share a background with most folks here in the sense that for many years I've owned and operated businesses, and in parallel with that, I try to do as much as I can to support the startup and broader business ecosystem. And I've done all kinds of I haven't just done startups. I've done small businesses and marketing agency and other stuff. So it's really been a passion to participate in the community. And I've gotten a lot of exposure to accelerators, incubators, that kind of thing. And I've worked with scores of programs all over the country and internationally now as well. And so I've kind of got a general landscape, and Founder Track kind of has two sides. One side is a company building platform for founders. And then the other side provides some tech enablement for accelerators. So in that journey, I've kind of gotten to know the accelerator landscape. And so by way of definitions, earlier you mentioned kind of incubator with BW Tech and accelerator. So maybe we can just do some broad definitions, and then I can provide some thoughts on the landscape of where we're at in the world of accelerators and kind of kick off the talk here. An accelerator, what I think of is it's usually a time-bound program, and it can run, I've seen it as short as 4 weeks up to 6 months. Kind of the standard length is like 12 weeks with a demo day at the end, right? We're all familiar with that format. And usually they have resources, mentors, advisors, and in some cases, they'll make an investment for equity. Whereas an incubator often has kind of, some of those things, or it might have an accelerator in it, and it also will have office space attached to it. It's kind of maybe its most defining quality. And sometimes they have services in incubators, right? Like they'll have accounting or legal services, things like that. So those are my kind of broad definitions. But zooming into accelerators, I think there's different types of accelerators. And when people are looking at participating in one, you want to be looking at industry-specific accelerators versus maybe vertical agnostic, where they kind of have companies in every different vertical. And it can be really helpful to find one that's vertical specific. So if you're, if the founder has a food and beverage product or is a value-added producer, the first thing I'm thinking of is Mike Tilke and the Chesapeake Ag Innovation Center and how they could help companies specifically in that vertical. Whereas, they're also like approach specific, like, Conscious Venture Lab, who we work with in Baltimore, has a view of the world, right? Of how to bring in other stakeholders besides investors and conscious capitalism, right? Or some accelerators that have an approach of focusing on product market fit or investor readiness. So sometimes they have an approach. And then there's some that like have different stages. So there might be like a pre-accelerator where they're really just helping you get the basics, maybe doing a business model canvas. Then there's seed accelerators where they're kind of helping you get that first capital in the door so the founder can quit their full-time job and focus on the business. And then there's growth accelerators where the company's already well established. Usually they'll have full-time employees. They'll be at $500 million in revenue, and now they're looking to kind of get to that next stage in the company. And so the stage matters. There's some that are virtual, some that are in person, hybrid. All these things are factors. When I'm advising a founder and they're considering an accelerator, this is like the first thing I'm asking: what type of accelerator is it? And then the next question I'm asking: is it free or paid? That's a big decision point. Is it something where it's founder friendly and free, or is it a paid service? And then conversely, do they make investments? That's a big, it's one of the main reasons often that founders will go to accelerators. And will they take equity? Do you pay cash? Do you pay equity? Do you pay both? And those are kind of important components. And then we're weighing that against the benefits. So what are the benefits? Well, the first one is money, right? Are they making an investment? Do they have investors? How do they make that investment? Is it upfront? Like I was in an accelerator when I did my first startup. I was in Accelerate Baltimore, and they invested $25,000 in my company, which was a lot of money for me at the time. And it was validation that the company was worth putting my time into. And so they gave me $12,500 upon entry into the accelerator, and then a few weeks in, they gave me another $12,500, right? And so you want to ask how that works, and or can they make customer introductions? Like there's a health care 1501 Health, which is a local accelerator, and they take in healthcare companies, and they have strong connections in the industry. And so can they introduce you to customers? So that money is kind of the top thing. I would say the next thing, in talking with founders, they always say that they really want or that they got value out of the accelerator is the people. And this was kind of the number one thing for me. Even to this day, when I was in that accelerator, that was in 2013. To this day, I can still reach out to the other founders that were in my cohort, and I'll get a response, right? And that was 11 years ago. And so the mentors, the people, the founders, the subject matter experts, the networking that comes with it is probably up there with the capital as the most important components. And so I always tell founders to evaluate all these kind of vectors of value that the accelerator has. What's the network of people that you're going to meet? What kind of access to capital? The advice, what kind of speakers, what kind of content. We work with Catapult out of UPenn, and that's run by the Graduate School of Education there. And they have outstanding curriculum for ed tech startups. I think it's the #1 ed tech platform in the country, maybe in the world. And so, evaluating what kind of advice and education and learning are you going to get? And then the demo day, right? This is the thing we're all excited about at the end of the program. What kind of reach does the program have? What's the quality going to be like? And then like also, what is like the alumni network like? Is it active? Is it stale? Is it, who are the people there? I often tell founders to look up who are the alumni and maybe talk to a couple of them and get their feedback on like what the program's like. And that's a good way to kind of get access to the program and understand the value that you would get out of it. And then the opposite of the value, like, is how much time commitment is there? So, if there's all these really valuable things, what do I have to put in? And that's variable. And I've seen this, and I think we've done over 50 accelerator programs at this point, with over 1,200 founders. So one of the biggest variables is how much effort and time the founder puts in to the accelerator, and that kind of equals how much of that value they get out of it. if that makes sense. And so I'm always telling the founder, you know, how much time commitment is this accelerator and what benefits are you getting out? And then the time frame, is it 8 weeks? Is it 12 weeks? Is it 6 months? What is it? And then they can kind of, you know, make a judgment on if it's worth it or not. So yeah, that's my general like layout of what I've seen in working with a lot of programs. I have a few maybe observations, and then maybe we can open it up to the group and talk a little bit more about the landscape of the accelerator world and the future of company building.
Well, that, Ryan, was better than
Yep.
the last 4 blogs I read or anybody else's articles on summarizing the whole story of accelerators. I mean, we could derive a checklist from that, publish it, and probably sell it, make money.
Okay. Yeah, you know, it is kind of a topic I've found myself kind of thinking a lot about and talking a lot about, but yeah, I haven't really seen any good like formal overviews like that. It might be nice to open a conversation around that and thanks for doing this topic on that. I think some of the observations after kind of working in the space now is that it's top heavy. There's like a few big names that we all know in the accelerator space, like Y Combinator and Mass Challenge and, you know, 500 startups, those type. And then there's just a ton of local and regional programs and vertical specific and smaller unknown programs. And so that's just an observation. You know, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just, it's top heavy and from a branding perspective. And that's a big deal because it, you know, there's kind of a stamp of approval you get when, you know, from a branding and association perspective, you'll see people kind of put YC, you know, what class they were in or that kind of thing. And so that's like another value benefit. And then it's also very standardized. I mean, I don't know when accelerators first emerged, but it's got to be at least 20 years old, maybe more. And it's largely the same format, right? It's like a 12-week program with a demo day at the end. And so it's kind of very standardized. Again, I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just, I think that's interesting observation. And then I think the other way I look at this is, and I've talked to hundreds of founders about their experience with accelerators at this point. And I think, you know, I always ask them what didn't go well or what you didn't like, because I want to understand how we can make it better. And so I think the top thing is that people point out is the time that it takes to participate. Sometimes they're really wary of committing time, and that's like the most important thing to a founder, because they're just already dedicating so much time to building stuff and selling stuff, right? And then the other thing is, you know, I noticed this. We did 4 in-person accelerators up till COVID, and one of the things I noticed is that there was like, we would have sessions on different topics, and that the satisfaction per founder per session topic varied. Like, I would ask one founder, we had a session on marketing, and they were like, yes, that's exactly what I need to hear. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do that. And it was just exactly perfect for me. And then I would turn around and talk to another founder, and they would say, yeah, it was all right. You know, and I was like, what's going on here? I was in the same room with all these people. I thought it was great. And it's just, you know, some people have different expertise and they have different timing, you know, what you need and when you need it. And so that was like another kind of drawback I've heard. And then the third kind of big drawback that I've heard and kind of a knock on accelerators is that they're limited time. It's like you do a program, you have this demo day, you're on a big high, you know, you're celebrated as an entrepreneur, you're getting connections, you're learning, and then all of a sudden it's gone. Like after the demo day, there's like this letdown or drop off. And so that time commitment, the standard kind of sage on the stage talks that happen are like variable as their quality, and then the letdown at the end. And so that's led me to kind of thinking about the future of entrepreneur support in general, and also the accelerator format and alternatives. And so I think there are some new kind of formats emerging at scale. There's things like startup studios. There are AI tools, and then hopefully, Founder Track, we're trying to rethink the accelerator and see how we can create more of a bespoke experience that's, one of the things we're developing is an AI co-founder, right? Where it stays with you, not only through the company you're building now, but several companies or companies you're advising, or when you do another company. And so, we've kind of broken down all these pieces, and we're thinking about reassembling all the components of company building and entrepreneur support and the resources, and how can we bring all that together in a new way. And so I find it interesting and intriguing to think about the future of entrepreneur support, including accelerators.
Okay, I like that phrase, AI co-founder.
Yeah.
That's scary.
But yeah, those are some of my thoughts. I mean, what's the format now? How do we create more of a discussion?
Hey, Patrick?
Yeah.
Or, Ryan, I'm sorry. I just want to follow up on that, your comment about the just kind of the 12-week structure of the accelerators. Frankly, I've looked at a few of them, and my impression is that it's kind of, the intention is that basically, well, for one, it seems like they're trying to get you to demonstrate rapid growth within a 12-week window, so that at the end of it, they can certify that you are a legitimate company that's had this rapid growth and that are suitable to be in the demo day. And that it just seems such an artificial structure. And why would I do it at their pace? And why is it, it just seems like an in-house, basically they just want to have you do a little dog and pony show for them for 12 weeks, showing them that you've got these L-shaped graphs, and then at the end of it, they can, present you as a product.
Yeah, there's definitely some pageantry that goes on in the space, and we've seen that spill over into mainstream media when it comes to like Shark Tank and other things, right? Where there's like I like to say a startup industrial complex where there's a whole industry around this stuff, and I think we need to be aware of that, and there's a give and take there. And so that's why, from the founder's perspective, I think, always the advice I give founders is to really look hard at the benefits and how this is going to help your company and what you want to achieve by doing this, and how beneficial it is to you. And for me, when I first got into space, I was in a brick and mortar business. I was in real estate. I was a real estate developer, and I had never done a high tech software company before in 2012. And so I applied to. I was in incubators. I got into the accelerator, and they kind of helped me a lot, because that was the first time I founded a high growth tech company, right? And so it was worth it. But yeah, you've really got to look at that. Those constraints of the 12 weeks, my perspective is that is a constraint of the resources of the startup ecosystem, not because it's a great format for founders. A lot of these programs, it's a cottage industry of service providers providing entrepreneur support, and almost everybody in the space has a great heart and really leads with their service to the community, but there's very limited resources. It's usually a volunteer army of mentors, a low budget, if any, and it's so they have to cap it. And so that's why I think the constraint is there from a start and finish date. But yeah, that's a great comment, and definitely one of the cons as you're evaluating it as a founder, and you have to kind of.
That's a good point. Did that answer your question, Bill? Yeah, I like that question, and I like what you said about that, Ryan. And I was thinking to myself, if I decided, okay, I'll get into the hamster wheel and I'll start treading as fast as I can to make it to the 12 weeks demo day, And perhaps when I pop out of the wheel, I will do a spin and a dance and somebody will give me $1. I don't know. But at the same time, I think, what else am I doing to enhance? What else am I doing to reach out and find out? So I've always been attracted by the compression of the accelerator. But like you were saying, Ryan, I've learned already today the degree to which niche accelerators, going after different aspects of what an accelerator can or can't do, with where it's targeting, what resources it has, what its focus is on how it's going to help you. That stuff you explained earlier was really enlightening to me.
That made me think of another, thought factor here, maybe to open this up to the group is, I see this every week because we just constantly working with companies. One of the themes I always hear, and this is one of the benefits to the compressed timeline, is that the founders see this as a sprint. There's almost like this thing that happens where you get around other people that are moving fast and you start moving fast, right? And it's like, oh, we got this demo day. I got to get this thing done, right? And it just creates some energy. And often, they're getting so much advice and have access to this thing for such a limited time. They start to ask themselves, well, wait a minute, maybe I do need to be a little more self-reflective here on the way I'm going. And I see so many companies pivot while they're in an accelerator because they realize they're just heading down a path with their blinders on, and then somebody says something kind of enlightening, or they see another founder in the group change in a certain way, and then they go, oh, I've been doing it wrong, right? And then they change and they pivot to a better way, or in some cases they shut the business down. And I consider that a win. We actually had in one group, one of the founders ended up joining, and this founder had 3 exits, by the way, ended up joining one of the other startups in our group. And he really realized through the program it's just not working, and he really was clicking with this other startup, and he joined the company, and that was awesome. What a great outcome. If you can save somebody time, talent, and treasure by just making them realize this isn't going to work, or whatever, for whatever reason. And so sometimes that compressed format and the like atmosphere of like just being around, learning, growing, expanding, just forces people to see something they didn't see before, right? And they often say that over and over. We've heard that.
Well, I've wondered at times, to what degree, Ryan, would you say I'm about to pick an accelerator? I've got my list down to the top 3 I think I should approach. And what I really want to do is I want to go to somebody who can answer it accurately and honestly and say to them, okay, what have you achieved? Can you show me the list of people you've helped over this many years or whatever, perhaps in my niche or something? And what became of them? Where are they today? What kind of win did they have with your accelerator? What kind of stats or performance can I get from an accelerator I'm trying to decide upon?
Oh boy. I'm happy to open this up, by the way. I keep talking. I'd love to hear other points of view, but I have a lot to say on that topic, but I'll defer to the group maybe first. And I'd like this to be.
That's a good idea, because, we've got Jose here. We've got Frank, Lee Marie, Stephanie's here. Chris, my gosh, Chris is here. Jeffrey, Anthony, Sina. What is your thoughts on that?
Can you please repeat the question again?
Well, I was asking, how much can I say to any accelerator that I'm thinking about joining? So what are your stats? What have you achieved? What's your performance? Can you show me wins, not just fancy testimonials of smiling faces on a web page, but some hard numbers where it benefited to what degree? Or can you give me some phone numbers and I'll call up and ask these people?
Okay, so I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer this because I'm in early stage of my company. So yeah, what I can say is that I personally look at the previous companies, the alumni, and see what kind of a stage they are in after they participated in that program. That's what I can say, because I took part in some programs across Maryland. My company, I just graduated from Maryland Energy Innovation Accelerator. They're pretty much new. I was one of the first 50 companies that participated in their accelerator program, and they're still planning, they're still developing more content and material and widening their network. But what I personally would like, if I want to go to the next accelerator, if that's needed, what I'm going to look at is what sort of network they have, especially if they can, as Ryan mentioned, if they can introduce to first potential customers or potential partners, that would be a great help. Because for me, for example, and I find many people like me that we are first-time entrepreneur, and the most important thing that we can get help from is a network. Money can be found more easily, surprisingly, than first companies, especially when B2B or B2G. It's very difficult to find companies and organizations that are willing to bet on new people and new companies. And that would be a great help, I think.
Definitely. And I like what you mentioned about going to the alumni. How can we get a list of the alumni, find people that we know that they know, start networking the alumni? It's an excellent approach. Peter, what about yourself? You've been in an accelerator, or you considered one? And
no, I've been an advisor more of the incubator side than an accelerator, but I wanted to ask Ryan his perspective. If a founder is using an accelerator, does that imply that they've committed to being a venture-backed company, or have you seen accelerator graduates successful with just bootstrapping or some other funding mechanism?
Yeah, it's a great point. And the company should have one of those two paths ironed out in front of them, right? Like, are you kind of growing the bootstrapping and maybe growing a linear growth business, or do you plan to get on the venture capital treadmill? Because once you go down that path, every investor is going to want you to keep taking more capital, right? And go down that path. And sometimes it's not as clear. Like, the company will start and they think they're a venture business, and then they realize, wait, this is just really a small business, which is okay. Like that's a great path to go on. And often for the founder, they can make more money that way, believe it or not. And yeah, that is an important delineation. And a lot of accelerators just want companies that are on the venture capital train, right? And because they're investors and they want, that's what they're trying to do, is make an investment. I will say, though, there's a growing number of these programs where they'll accept companies that are not venture backable as part of their thesis. They want to have impact. And sometimes they accept nonprofit organizations, right? And because they're themed in a certain way, they're in their vertical industry or conscious capitalism, or their approach. And so some of them will have like 80% of the companies will be venture backed, and then there's some that don't have that as a marker of success. So a lot of programs that are at like university funded programs at economic development corporations, sometimes they're just willing to help whoever comes into the program, and they have something that is versatile enough to help a variety of different programs. But that's an important component that everyone should be weighing in here. And are you in the right place? And I think that's one of the biggest things here. Sina, going back to what you said and others, is like you have to look at this, Bill, you know, what you said is like, you have to look at this through the lens of is this the right fit? Is this really going to help me where I'm at? Because there's trade-offs. It's going to cost you something. Even if it's free, it's going to cost you your time and your association with this group. And I love the idea of just talking to alumni. That's just like, I think the best way. And I'm sure it'll be a relatively warm response, right? Like reach out to people and it's like, hey, you were in this accelerator. I'm thinking about going in. You got 15 minutes of chat, like, I think that's a great approach. And you really learn. And most founders are pretty honest about this. Say, yeah, I met some great people. I didn't raise any capital. Like they'll tell you, what actually happened in their founder to founder. So
Cool.
That's a great way to.
Well, Bill has put a question in the chat. Did you see it, Ryan?
Okay. Yes. What's the range of access to advisors and mentors? So let's start with that one. There's a couple questions here. What's the range of access to advisors and mentors? Yeah, I think this is like one of the top things. When we ran the founder track, the in-person founder track accelerator, this was like what I really focused on. Me and Jeff Munn, Tammy Howie, and the others that helped us run the accelerator, we just tried to get the best quality mentors, advisors that we could. And that was, we funded some companies, invested, but like when we asked, what people got out of it, still to this day, they say, oh, I just had someone the other day call me up that was in one of our cohorts and say, thank you for introducing me to Carolyn. I've stayed in touch with her. She just helped me with something in my company. This is 5 years ago. And they just called me last week out of the blue. I just want to say thanks. And I was like, and so this is really critical. The mentors, the advisors, the people that you meet are so critical. And so and it's a wide range of quality. I've seen it across, there's some programs have different standards and how they go about finding those mentors. Another important delineation on this, and you can ask, do you pay your mentors or are they volunteers? Some programs pay their mentors. And you can take away from that what you want. The best mentors that we had are not working for mentor money, mentoring money. They're usually they're very rich. They've been extremely successful, and getting a few $1,000 for mentoring is not high on their agenda. They're doing this for other reasons, and so just something to think about.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Jose, are you there with us? What are your thoughts on what's going on here?
Hey, yes, I'm here. No, I was just listening in did my video kick in or no? Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, no, listening in because I'm looking into accelerators to apply to. So that's why I would just really curious to hear of people's experiences that have gone through it. So
Good. Well, I'm glad you came today, and listen in a little bit when Chris gives you a bit of a opportunity on what you just asked.
okay, thank you.
And Stephanie, how does this compare to what's going on in your area? Let's see, Stephanie may have stepped away. Lee Marie.
Hi, so I actually part of a couple institutions here in Maryland, so University of Maryland, and then I'm working with Bowie State, and we actually have an incubator for students specifically, and just looking into structures to put into place for perhaps accelerators to expand beyond students, faculty, and staff at Bowie State specifically. and to see if we can extend to the community. So I'm just listening in, trying to find out a little bit of customer discovery on my end, what folks would be interested in seeing, and what they're concerned about, and those kind of things.
Well, I'm glad you attended, because I went to Bowie State University for it wasn't a full accelerator. It might have been in a way, because it was 6 to 7 weeks. We met every week, and we had very tight schedule of assignments. Do these things, bring this in, do this thing, bring this in, share it with the group, share it with the group. And there must have been 15 people, 15 entrepreneurial ventures represented. And we had like a demo day at the end. So it pretty much was an accelerator being hosted by Bowie. And it was, gosh, 7 years ago, maybe it was before the pandemic. So I know that there's a lot going on in that university, in that area. So I'm glad you're here.
There's a lot going on at the university, but also making sure that we extend out into the Bowie community. So that's the key piece, is making sure that the structures that are in place are serving what entrepreneurs need.
Yep. Well, excellent. So Jeffrey, you got thoughts on this?
So I do. I mean, I think it's important. I definitely think, trying to get, again, if you're trying to do it on your own, it makes it really difficult. One of the biggest things that I've always enjoyed, and again, my representation into most incubators has been from a mentor standpoint, but I think it's really important because there's a lot of questions out there, and obviously you can go and try and figure things out for yourself, but the beauty of the accelerators and getting those connections through the accelerators is really getting answers custom tailored to you. If you go to like these larger webinar sessions and stuff like that, you're going to get more canned information, which is all well and good as a foundation, but being part of some of these, hands-on accelerators, it's not just the actual experience that you're getting, it's being able to be connected to people that can point you in the right direction, that can help you. And again, as someone who does a lot of fractional work with early stage companies, it can give you the ability to get that one person in there or several people in there, at a lower level, because that's really all you can handle at that point, to be able to grow your company much quicker. And again, that's where the name Accelerator came from, is getting all those resources that can help you.
So true. That's the experience I've had with what I've participated in the ecosystem around here. I had gone to, what was it called then? The Maryland Center for Entrepreneurship, right, Ryan? That's where we first met. And that was a decade ago. But again, there's people I met there, still in contact, still remember lessons well learned there that I continue to apply today. So if I think back, truly the highlight milestone focal points of my leaps and bounds and my spills and thrills and falls and pick myself ups were in and around getting involved with an accelerator from some vector. Somehow being involved in it, watching things go down and making those connections. But there's my question back to you, Ryan. So when somebody comes to you where you're involved in something with Accelerator, they say, okay, so can you publish beyond the cheerful testimonial to say who's really won with this? Like in our current region, Chris, can you think of anybody who came up through anybody's help in any county in Maryland and really took off, and it's a success story we should all be aware of and proud? I mean, whether it's Google, and so we have to give some credit to the University of Maryland. You all know that, right? One of the founders of Google came right through the University of Maryland.
The thing that I guess I live by, and that is it's not my own personal feeling is this, and that is that, okay, so you've got the Googles, you've got the Apples, you've got a lot of these, you've got the Ubers. Uber is one that came through Y Combinator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is that we, as an entrepreneurial services and support industry, make the mistake of spending far, far, far too much time on touting, oh my gosh, look at where this company went. Take Uber. They went from ground zero to God only knows what number in a relatively limited number of years. And that's all fine, well and good. But Uber represents one of maybe 2 or 3 or 4 million businesses that are out there. And that's one success story that everybody starts hanging their hat on. Yet if you stop and think below that, how many companies are very, very worthy of being in business, of thriving, of moving forward? Maybe they don't, Uber to me is a fluke. They found a niche, they found a market, and they found the right investors at the right time, and a lot of it is luck. Okay. But my concern with a lot of the accelerators is that we spend more time than I think is appropriate on looking at those few huge wins, the 100 millions, the 200 millions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that I keep working on is, okay, how can we bring the concept of what you're supposed to get out of an accelerator down to a point where we're less focused on how much money you've raised, because that takes you down a path that you may find you don't want to go down the road, versus a business development center, or for whatever I haven't come up with a term, where you've got this population of businesses that are very worthy, that are very viable, but yet are not necessarily focused on this venture capital raising, racetrack. And that's where my thinking is right now on how do we create that kind of an environment where we're less focused on the huge wins and we're more focused on the doubles, the triples, maybe just the home runs, not the grand slam home runs. And so I'm always thinking about how we blend the two together to create something of a bigger whole for more people in which to participate.
Well said, Chris. And Bill, you may recall Patrick Lee, when he spoke a couple of days ago through the SBDC, pointed out that the macroeconomic statistics, the macroeconomics world that comes to us constantly through the media and such, is really not that relevant to us here in the microeconomic world of getting a startup rolling, getting a business that's going to start as a small business. Sorry, but that's where it starts, and so forth. So to stabilize your microeconomics world of the business you're building now here locally with the friends and family and cohort members and the ecosystem around you, that's the challenge. That's what Accelerate needs to do. So Chris, would you take us on into the home run here with the announcement that Startup Grind has on what we're trying to do with solving these same problems right here locally?
Well, I'd be thrilled to do so. A year ago, Startup Grind Maryland partnered with BW Tech at UMBC, which is their big technology and research center. And they have a number of great programs down there. I highly recommend you come down and check them out. And what we are developing, because this will never be a finished product, it will always be evolving, is we have developed what we call the Startup Accelerator program. And I am very, very proud to be able to sit here and say that our focus has been on developing a program for Maryland entrepreneurs by experienced Maryland entrepreneurs using a Maryland powered platform And so you've got a joint venture between BW Tech at UMBC, Startup Grind Maryland, and our one and only Ryan Sears and Founder Track, who have come together, and we are exploring these kinds of options. It is a 12-week program. It will have 6 in-person sessions, and then there will be 6 weeks where you will those who are accepted are off working with their dedicated mentor. And at the end, we will have a big graduate showcase where everybody in the cohort gets to really showcase their progress, their successes, but yet not necessarily in ways of just being a 3-minute elevator pitch that you see in most accelerators. And our focus is really more about what Ryan has said, which is this isn't just about going out and trying to raise money. This is about building a network. This is about building those connections, those contacts that are truly valuable beyond the day you step outside of the graduation arena. And we are thrilled to announce that we are going on. It will be next week, probably on Monday or Tuesday. We are going to be opening our application process for our 2025 spring cohort. And it will be a cohort of 10 startups. They must be exclusively Maryland-based, i.e. they must be legally based in Maryland. They must have a Maryland-based founder. A lot of the typical criteria, must be incredibly ambitious, must really be taking this seriously, are looking to grow at an accelerated level. And at the top of the pipeline is that, yes, we say, are you looking for future investment? But yet we ask that only to kind of differentiate the way in which we work with the startup. Because if you're going for an investment, that's a slightly different approach than if you're not necessarily going for an investment. But the point where we want to get you is to where you have the luxury of making that decision and being able to continue your program, your business on beyond that. And so I'll keep it short. Please be on the lookout for the announcements. They'll be coming out Monday and Tuesday of next week. And we welcome, and our program is open to any Maryland startup that meets the application criteria. So be on the lookout, and we welcome you to apply.
Thank you, Chris. And listen, I just want to personally thank Stephanie, Jose, Chris, Jeffrey, Thina, Peter, Bill, and Ryan especially for coming to this Founders Forum and joining in this discussion. I mean, Ryan knocked it out of the park from the beginning, and I'm still thinking about the number of fly balls I could have grabbed out there, but there was just so many chunks of wisdom and experience that came through. So Ryan, I want to really thank you a lot. I couldn't find the reaction button. I have to do this for real.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great.
Yes, thank you, Ryan, very much.
Thanks, Ryan.
No problem. Yeah, thanks everybody. It's nice to see some familiar faces and meet some new folks too. Hopefully we can connect on LinkedIn and continue the conversation.
All right, you guys have a good weekend.
All right, thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great one, everybody.